Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. As you can hear, my voice is still not quite all the way back yet. It was better earlier today, which was good because my father's funeral was earlier today and I had to speak. and, and it was nice that I could at least kind of talk. So, anyway, thank you for being here. And please forgive me if I take frequent sips of Snapple. Um, just to keep the voice going. But before I get into the show, I noticed we're talking in the chat about the character of Trelane in Star Trek and whether or not he is a Q. And 255 AD, you said that it's on Memory Alpha that he's a Q. I haven't read his Memory Alpha article for a while, so I had I had a black suit on for the funeral, 255 AD, but I changed as soon as I got home because I had dressed like Rod Serling for enough of the day. For this, I wanted to be a little more comfortable. Hi, Caitlin. Um, but yeah, so I don't know. My guess is because it's never established explicitly in the show that Trelane is a Q. Like I said in the chat a little bit ago, they cast John Delancey to provide the voice of Trelane's father in the episode of Strange New Worlds that he appears in the previous season. And that's it. Like, that's all they did. They never said that John Delancey was playing Q. It was just John Delancey doing the voice of Trelane's father. And of course, a lot of Star Trek nerds jumped to a conclusion and said, oh, it's Q and Trelane is Q's son, or, And I think what happened after that is Akiva Goldsman, who is one of the executive producers of the show, said in an interview that their intention was that Trelane would be a Q. Like that's what that was supposed to mean. So I think Memory Alpha, I guess, took that as like word of God confirmation and ran with it. And it doesn't really matter to me one way or the other. But if you want to be a strict interpretationist of what was actually on the show, the episode in no way establishes that Trelane's father is Q or that Trelane himself is a Q. All they did was cast John Delancey to do the voice of his father. So anyway, and before I go any further with the show, Caitlin, I'll tell you about the voice in a little bit. It's not just the talking at the funeral and there's a story behind that. No, and H. Lynn Floyd, I didn't want to take the night off. I didn't want to take the night off. I like doing this and I like being able to do this. But anyway, before I get to anything else, I want to show you all something. So, my dad's funeral was today. And because he was a veteran of the United States Navy, he was buried with full military honors. And because he was not married at the time of his death, and therefore technically did not have a widow, I, as the oldest child, was the one who received his flag that was on his coffin. So my dad got buried with full military honors. His coffin was draped in the American flag, like JFK. Basically, my dad is the same as JFK or Abraham Lincoln. Virtually, I mean, a lot of similarities. And now I have his flag. And I think what I'm going to do is get a nice frame for it, one of those triangular frames, and I'm going to give it to my brother because my brother has a place in West Virginia that is like a big professionally equipped like fucking car garage, like a huge place. That's all his, that he just has as like a hobby shop, like to work on cars for people and to kind of do his own thing. And my dad spent a lot of time up there with him and helped him build it and helped him equip it. And I think that's where this should live. So I think that's what I'm going to do. But I just wanted to show you all my dad's flag. So having gotten that out of the way, Um, and thank you. Skeletal says condolences. Thank you very much. Is my dad buried in Arlington? No, no. He is buried in Greenview, which is in Williamsport, which is just a few minutes from here. No, he is not buried in Arlington, but he got full military honors with a 21 gun salute, um, full military honor guard from the American Legion, and it was really nice. It was really nice. It felt very special, and I think he would have I think he would have liked it because he was very proud of his service in the Navy. So yeah, yeah. Um, thank you, Sinister Intelligence, Isaiah. Thank you very much. Um, anyway, let's get started, shall we? Enough of this sentimental stuff. And people ask about my dad and some of the questions that were submitted, so the subject will come back again. But yeah, we will have two hangouts in August. Yeah, my plan is to do the one to make up the one that we missed this weekend, and then we'll do another one at the end of August. That's the idea. No, not all American veterans are buried there. 255 AD. It's not nearly big enough for that. It's not nearly big enough for that. Um, anyway, I will be answering questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members for the first segment of the show. So if you have anything from this point forward that you want me to pay attention to in the live chat, including a super chat, if you were planning on being generous and tossing in a super chat, which I always appreciate. And actually, somebody already did one. Kara did. Thank you very much, Kara. Thank you very much for your generosity, and I really appreciate it. But if you have anything in the live chat that you want me to pay attention to from this point forward, if possible, try to hold on to it until I get through the patron and member questions, and then I will be paying full attention to the live chat. But from this moment forward until then, I will not be paying attention to the live chat. I will be paying attention to these questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful Patreon patrons and channel members. And the first of those is from our friend, General Contact Unit Problem Child, who says, despite what the right say, it actually wasn't uncommon in the 90s and 2000s for movies and shows to race swap, change characters, or put people of color in historical settings where they wouldn't necessarily have actually been present. Back then, did you even notice or think about it? 2008 BBC show Merlin had a black Guinevere, and 15-year-old me didn't really notice. I also didn't notice when Michael Clark Duncan played the Kingpin. No one had yet told me I should care about that stuff, so I didn't notice. Yeah, I had a similar experience when I was a kid. You're right. It is certainly not a recent practice. People getting mad at it isn't recent either, but people getting mad at it and having a big enough platform to make people listen to them is relatively recent. I think there were probably people, I know there were probably people when Michael Clark Duncan was cast as Kingpin, for example, who grumbled about it and were like, hey, Kingpin's a white guy. Why don't they ever cast a white guy to play a black character? That whole thing. It just wasn't nearly as prevalent. And people who did complain about that sort of thing were just kind of waved off and shushed and fuck you. Nobody cares. And I think it's a combination of nowadays people with those attitudes who make those kind of complaints have a much easier time finding an audience than they did back then. And also people in general, or fans in general, fandom is just a lot more precious about quote unquote accuracy. And so a lot of these, racist people who might complain about race swapping or putting people of color in things, they hide behind that. Well, I just want it to be accurate. If a character is not black, why should they be black in the movie? I just want it to be accurate. And that has become a lot more prevalent as well. But yeah, you're right. Back in the day, it happened from time to time, and it was almost, except to a few kooks and weirdos and racists, it was never a big deal. Like, I did notice that Michael Clark Duncan had been cast as a king, but I did notice that they were casting a black actor to play a character who was portrayed as white in the comics. I did notice, but I didn't care. I thought it was cool, actually, because Michael Clark Duncan is a great actor. And I thought, oh, what a great choice for Kingpin. Like, it didn't matter to me that he was black playing a traditionally white character. But I did notice. I just didn't get mad about it because when Daredevil came out, I was a grown up. Next question from the Wondering Watcher. Hello, I didn't get my question in last week because I submitted it a few minutes before the deadline. Last year, I asked about reviewing alternative universe episodes, and you said you'd get to them around August 2026. Do you know when Parallels will be reviewed? It's one of my favorites, and August is my birthday month. Hoping for a happenstance of a birthday surprise from you, Steve. LOL. I feel like I did answer this question last time. Did I not answer this question last time? Maybe you just didn't watch that far. Maybe you bailed out. Maybe you thought, oh fuck, he's not going to answer my question. No, Parallels would have been in August, but because I didn't do a retro review this week because of my father and everything I was doing and relating to that, I basically just plucked out one of the reviews I had scheduled to do and just kind of shoved everything forward a week. So the Parallels review will now be, I think, in the first week of September. I think. But yeah, it would have been in August, but now it will be in September. So sorry, we just missed your birthday month, but it is coming up soon. It is coming up soon. It is going to be a part of that Other Universes batch. Donovan S. Boyle. Hey, Steve. Just got started watching Twin Peaks with my ex. He and I are still friends. And was wondering what your favorite character in the series is. Oh, man. Favorite character in Twin Peaks. That's so tough because they're all so great. I always really liked Hawk. I mean, I like them all. They're all such great characters, but I really like Hawk because he's the kind of guy who is usually kind of laid back and quiet, but every so often they'll give him a line where he just is incredibly like funny in a really deadpan way, or does that David Lynch thing where he says something that's, kind of corny, but intentionally corny. And yeah, I think Hawk is my favorite character. But also, I mean, Agent Cooper, I mean, come on. And that also follows my typical pattern of having the least interest or the most, not least interesting, but the most obvious favorite character, right? Because like, who's your favorite character on Deep Space Nine? I mean, probably Captain Sisko. It's not, it's a pretty obvious choice. And yeah, if my favorite character on Twin Peaks isn't Hawk, then it's probably Dale Cooper. Jim Kostich. Is there any official truth to the rumor that Kurtzman is retiring from Star Trek? I have no idea. I have no connections. I have no inside information. I don't know. The speculation comes from two sources, mainly. The first is just the pending change in ownership. A lot of people are assuming that if and when Warner Brothers Discovery does take over Paramount, that they're just going to clean house, not just with Star Trek, but just in general. They're just going to want to bring their own people in to run things. And so people have speculated that Kurtzman may be out because of that. And also, I believe his current contract expires this year. And again, a lot of people are, well, this might be a good opportunity for him to just kind of, gracefully step away and say, hey, I put my time in. It's the end of my contract. There's new owners. I'm going to just step away and let them do what they want to do. And I have done my bit, but I have no idea. I literally have no more idea than you do because I don't have contacts at Paramount. I don't talk to people. I don't know. So sorry, I can't help. Zulu Romeo. I don't really have a question for you this week. I just want to make sure you're doing okay after this weekend's sad news. Be strong and be kind to yourself always. Take all the time you need. We're all here for you. Thank you very much, my friend. I appreciate that. And I do really appreciate people, assuring me like you can take time off. You don't have to, go right back to making videos. I did mostly take this week off. I didn't write anything this week. I had 2 videos already in the pipeline that I went ahead and finished earlier this week. and just scheduled them to come out next week so that I could take this week off from writing completely. And I also skipped the Star Trek review that I normally would have put up yesterday. I did go see Spider-Man yesterday, and I did put up a Spider-Man review, but that wasn't something I wrote. That was just kind of off the cuff. So all I had to do was see the movie, shoot the video, edit the video a little bit, and then put it up. So that wasn't a whole ton of work. And I did want to do that because I'm glad I got to see Spider-Man, and I'm glad I liked Spider-Man, and I got to, make a review video of it. But no, I haven't been working any more than I've wanted to work this past week. So I appreciate the thoughtfulness of people saying, take as much time as you need. And I believe me, I'm taking care of myself. And I'm not working any more than I have wanted to work. So thank you for, letting me know that it was okay. And here's another one from Zulu. Oh, okay. One question. With the UK crowning a new prime minister this past week, a topical question. Setting aside eligibility criteria, of course, which Star Trek character would be best suited to be U.S. president? And specifically, a president to get America and the wider world out of the current mess we're all in. My choice, Miles Edward O'Brien. More than a president, he's a Union man. Well, I mean, if we're throwing eligibility out the window for obvious reasons, and we're looking for a president specifically to kind of try and right the ship, I think for me, the two most obvious candidates would be Spock or Captain Picard, because I think they, in their various appearances in the franchise, have shown the greatest aptitude for diplomacy and peacemaking and that sort of thing. So I feel like, I mean, not that O'Brien wouldn't do a great job. I'm sure O'Brien would be a terrific president. But to me, it would be between Spock and Picard, as far as who could bring people together, who could be a peacemaker, that sort of thing. Yeah. An enemy spy who needs a little sympathy because fear is strong and loves for everyone who isn't me. If you could have lunch with any person no longer alive in all of history, who would it be? With the added caveat that that since returning to the modern day, they've discovered fantasy sports, and all they want to talk about is their boring and tedious lineup of players. What a diabolical question. I feel like I always say this, but Orson Welles, because he's one of the few people I can imagine making that interesting. Like, ordinarily, if I felt like I was stuck talking to someone and all they wanted to talk about was fucking fantasy sports, I'd be rummaging through my pockets looking for a cyanide pill. But if Orson Welles was the storyteller, I think he might be able to not necessarily make me interested in fantasy sports, but at least make it easier to listen to, So once again, Orson Welles is my dead guy to share a meal with of choice. Bill says, what do you think of efforts to revitalize Star Trek by Paramount? Sincere effort or pure money grab? I think it depends on who we're talking about. I believe that if we're talking about the people who are hired to make the shows, the actual artists making the shows, the writers, the directors, the costume designers, the set designers, the actors, I think on the part of the creative people, it will be a sincere effort. I think they will all be trying as best they can to make the best show they can make. And I think that is actually usually the case. I mean, there are exceptions. There are like mercenary operations in Hollywood everybody from top to bottom isn't really there to make art at all. They're just, churning out content, hopefully to turn a profit. Like, that is a thing that does exist. But when you get to a property as relatively high profile as Star Trek, that a lot of people want to work for, for various reasons. A lot of people want to work on a Star Trek show. I think when you get to that point, most of the people actually making the show are making a good faith effort to make the best show they can. On the executive side, of course, it's a money grab, because that's all they care about. That's all they understand. They see everything as a product that is to be sold, and any artistic merit it may or may not have is really none of their concern. And they probably aren't capable of comprehending it on that level anyway. That's not entirely fair. There are some studio executives who are very good at that and who do care about the quality of the product. But I think the higher up on the ladder you go, the less they care about the quality of the product, the less they care about the artistic content, and the more they care exclusively about how much money it's going to make. So it depends on where you're directing your gaze, I think. Some random geek offering hugs after hearing the loss of your dad. Thank you, my friend. Thank you, my friend. I just want to clear up a confusion I have come across. Some think that because I take care of my 5 disabled friends financially, Joanna, Joey, Naz, LQ, and Phoenix, that no one has to worry about them. That is not true. It was never true. In order for it to be true that I did take care of all my disabled friends and all my stuff, I needed to make $50 an hour. I was only making $21.30 an hour at my last job, Seattle's minimum wage. I overcharged my credit cards to try and keep my friends alive. And here's the next part of that, also from some random geek who will not shut up about capitalism. Sorry, not sorry. Yes, I post my friends' GoFundMe's, PayPal, and Cash App links almost every day on my socials. Some random geek everywhere. CharityLinks.page is mentioned here a lot, but most of the time, Joanna Roberts' begging bowl gets no bites. Phoenix goes many days, many weeks without donations. But thank you, Matthew. You have donated to Phoenix. I've been forgetting to thank you for Phoenix. And now I have run out of money. I can't afford to help my friends out anymore. I hope others will step up. CharityLinks.page, everybody. CharityLinks.page, and the links that Geek will be sharing in the chat. It's a disgrace that in this country, in this incredibly wealthy, powerful country of the United States, that people are forced to resort to these sorts of means in order just to pay their bills. You know, Joanna's not asking for financial help because she wants to take her kids on vacation. You know what I'm saying? It's to keep the lights on. It's to keep food on the table. And that is a disgrace. It would be a disgrace anywhere in the world for that to happen. But it's especially a disgrace in this country, where not only do we have the wealth and have the resources, but we are constantly bragging about how great things are and about how good we've got it and about how strong and rich we are. And yet, and the people that Geek knows who are in this situation are but a tiny, tiny handful of all of the people in the same situation. It's inexcusable. It's inexcusable. So yeah, I mean, please help out if you possibly can. Carlisle the Cinephile. Hi there, Steve. Hello there, Steve. In the wake of the trailer for Avengers Doomsday, I find myself unable to muster the will to care. To me, everything we've seen just feels like a desperate attempt to manufacture hype, and it's all fallen flat for me. It looks like this movie took all the wrong lessons from No Way Home and thinks that nostalgic cameos are enough to make a satisfying movie. Hey, look, it's the X-Men again. You like them, right? I don't know. What do you think? Are you excited for this movie? I see where you're coming from. I would say my state of mind about it right now is I am curious. I can't rightly say I'm excited about it. I was excited about Spider-Man, and I think that excitement was more or less justified because the new Spider-Man movie I thought for the most part was very good. But no, I don't think I'm excited about Avengers Doomsday, but I am curious to see what it is, what it's like. I'm curious to see if they can pull it off. Because honestly, I am naturally just a lot more interested in the smaller films the single character films, or the sort of sub franchises of the MCU, like Spider-Man, like Guardians of the Galaxy, like on TV, like Daredevil, like that sort of thing. I enjoy the ones that are focused on a single character or like a single sort of core group of characters. The major big Avengers movie crossovers, I mean, after Infinity War and Endgame, I feel like they kind of busted that nut, and now they're trying to build up to another one. But what made Infinity War and Endgame special and interesting to the extent that they were was they were the climax to the entire MCU up to that point. Like the entire franchise had been building up to these two movies. So it was kind of like the ultimate blow off to the entire MCU. And also that kind of thing had never really been done before at that scale. I mean, there had been crossovers before, and I mean, the original sort of shared universe crossover was done, 70 years ago during, or 80 years ago, by Universal and the Universal Monsters. But it had never been done on the kind of scale that it was done with Infinity War and Endgame. So it had a lot of that going for it. And Doomsday and Secret Wars, they just don't have those qualities. Like, it's not the first time. It doesn't feel like there's been a lot of momentum built up as to, what this is going to be. It doesn't feel like we've been primed to expect a payoff, It just doesn't feel that way. So I'm not as excited about it, but I am very curious to see what it is and to see, how it turns out. Andy Lawler, who has been seeking out small pieces of joy to brighten a dark and dreary world. Hey, Steve, which would you rather watch? A completely AI-generated, 100% synthetic feature-length film, or a completely human-produced Kirk Cameron movie? Don't wuss out and say neither. Take a stand, man. Skyla or Charybdis? Thanks, and have a great weekend, everybody. I think I got to go with the Kirk Cameron movie, man. I think I got to go with the Kirk Cameron movie. And I'll tell you why. It comes down to the fact that in either case, I would only be watching the movie to make fun of it. And it's just more fun to make fun of a person. It's just more fun to make fun of people who made a bad movie because they suck, or they made shitty decisions, or they have terrible taste, or terrible ideologies, or they had too little of a budget, or whatever. It's just more fun to make fun of that than to make fun of something that, as you describe, would be completely 100% synthetic. Like, so who am I making fun of? The guy who wrote the prompt? Like, it's just not as much fun. It's more fun to make fun of people, So yeah, I would go with the Kirk Cameron. I would go with the Kirk Cameron joint. The Brain, deeply sympathetic for the recent loss of your father. How are you doing? Thank you so much for your question and your sympathy. I'm doing okay. The funeral went relatively well. There were no major disasters, the big boss man did not show up and, hook a chain to my father's coffin and drag it away. So there's that, we didn't have that to deal with. And yeah, I think overall it went very well. And in general, I'm doing okay. I'm hanging in there. My brother and I have been kind of handling things, and we're going to continue to do that. Now that the funeral is behind us, now we can focus on the incredibly fun adventure of settling the estate. Oh, it's going to be so much fun. But we're going to be together in it. We're going to be handling it as a team. And fortunately, my dad had a lawyer and a will, so that will be a great help to us in sort of sorting everything out. And yeah. But, emotionally, I mean, obviously it's devastating. I didn't I mean, I knew I was going to have to lose my father at some point because we are mortal, but I really was not expecting it to be now. Um, and even after he told me his diagnosis, I wasn't expecting it to be this fast. So a lot of it is still kind of unreal, because it happened so quickly. But I'm doing okay. So, and yeah, thank you for asking. David Colby is back from Canada. I believe a new curse has been invented. May May Donald Trump support your cause. American war hawks wanted war with Iran for decades. We're now losing. Oil companies wanted solar to be crushed and the world to end, apparently. The graph on solar power looks like a hockey stick, exponential growth. Donald Trump's bellicosity toward Canada has cut their right wing in half and lost them an entire fucking election. Some silver linings for the world's longest running aneurysm watch. It'll happen soon. Hey, I'm not a praying person. Although, and I will say this is an incredibly vague statement, one prayer that I prayed today was actually answered within a few moments of me praying it. So I don't think that's evidence of the existence of God. I think that's just a coincidence. But it is evidence nonetheless that there may be some efficacy to prayer. So I will keep my fingers crossed in a gesture of prayer, in a gesture of most earnest and solemn prayer, and hope for that aneurysm, as I think we all should. As I think we all should. Neil Klein, I doubt that I'm going to add to the myriad supporters you have brought into this community who are extending their sympathies and advice. Consider yourself hugged. When I watched your video on your father, I sobbed. He didn't deserve that. All I ask is that you and your brother realize this mad time is an opportunity to become a little closer. Death can be catastrophic for the family dynamic. You and he sound grounded. Please monitor and maintain the bond. You matter so very much. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, I wouldn't worry about me and my brother. We're pretty solid, and we are fortunately we are very much of the same mind on pretty much everything. Like there's nothing about Dad's arrangements, his funeral, or what we're going to have to do as far as settling the estate and dividing things between us. Like I foresee no arguments on the horizon. We're very much of the same mindset as far as everything, and even beyond that, we're just I think we're a team. We're very different in a lot of ways. We both take after our dad in very different ways. We inherited different things from him, I think, but we're on the same page and we're together, and yeah. So I think we're going to be okay. But thank you for that. Thank you for that reminder because it is very important. Caitlin L, the parallel universe version of Caitlin L. Get it? I do get it. And for anybody who doesn't get it, that is an awesome deep cut DC Comics joke, and I really, really dig it. Um, I recently read some articles about harder left Dems winning primaries in the face of Trump, which would seem to be a win for accelerationism, right? Except they also point out how Trump fucked up the infrastructure to the point where rebuilding, let alone enacting progressive policies, is difficult, if not impossible, which really lays bare the Faustian pact behind accelerationism, huh? Even if its direct harms were worth it. Why do so many people conflate radicalism with accelerationism? I think for a lot of people, the appeal of accelerationism is the idea that well, everything is so fucked anyway that it's worth it to just continue to press on the gas and let everything blow itself up, and then we can start over. Because in their mind, doing that actually feels easier than trying to fix things as they are. Trying to reform things, even to reform things in a very extreme, substantial way. that just feels like a lot of work. And there are a lot of people who don't want to do that work, or who are daunted by the prospect of doing that work, or who don't want to wait for that work to be done. And again, have somehow convinced themselves that burning everything down and then building it back up somehow won't take a really hell of a long time. Like, we can't wait for reform. We can't wait for incrementalism. We can't wait for this. Like, well, I mean, do you really think if you destroy everything and start over, that that's not going to be an incredibly lengthy process? So I think a lot of it is just, I think a lot of it is just impatience and wishful thinking, and not wanting to do the amount of work that is going to need to be done. I think that's a lot of it, to be honest. Agent Meister, as sharp as the Soviet sickle and as hard as the hammer that crosses it. Peldor Joy, Steve. I'm sure I'm not the first person in this chat to express my condolences for your loss. Your video about your father was a great credit to him. With that in mind, this message is somewhat related to family matters. What is your earliest memory? Or to put it another way, what is your earliest memory that you'd like to share on this platform? Have you recently had an unbidden memory? Something you haven't thought about in years, but to quote Dan Aykroyd, just popped in there. I haven't had one of those lately. And I haven't had one of those related to my dad, which I think is maybe what you're getting at. It's difficult. It's difficult for me to identify my first memory, my earliest memory. One of my very early memories is of going with my parents to Gettysburg Battlefield, which is roughly an hour from here, and being lifted up by my dad and sat on the barrel of a cannon. I don't know if that's actually my earliest memory, but it's a pretty early one. And like a lot of it is kind of a blur. I don't have them all mapped out on a calendar, but I feel like I was 3, maybe a smidgen older, but I was very young. I also remember, again, when I was around 3, maybe 2 or 3, I think I was 3. We had a really terrible blizzard, and I went outside and, my winter coat and everything, to play in the snow after the blizzard was over. And I fell over. I kind of tipped sideways and fell into the snow and couldn't get up. And my mom, instead of helping me up right away, left me there and went into the house to get her camera and took a picture of me trapped in the snow, lying sideways like that. And that picture is still somewhere. I don't think I have it. I don't have a copy of it, but I think either mom has it or maybe it's at my dad's house. But that picture still exists of the time when I think I was 3 years old, and my mother left me trapped in the snow for a few minutes while she went and got her camera so she could memorialize that moment. That's also a very, very early memory. None ya business. So now people are mentioning that there never was a need for Q to even be in TNG, which makes me laugh. The 2 times that Picard met with someone who naturally had the powers of a god, what does Picard do? In one case, he becomes the god's buddy. In the other, he does, well, nothing. Showing, of course, that Kirk was always better. The 2 times he met a god, series and Star Trek 6, you mean Star Trek 5, he fights them. Such a cool atheist. My question is, who is saying that there didn't need to be Q in TNG? I'm not even really familiar with this. Are people actually saying that Q was not a net positive for TNG? That somehow TNG would have been better if Q wasn't in it? Some of the best episodes are Q episodes. That's just a really. I have not heard people say that, so I don't know. I don't know. I think you're listening to the wrong people. If you're listening to people saying there was no need for Q in TNG, that's crazy talk. John Burns, my condolences for the loss of your father. What do you remember was the most important lesson you learned from your father? Um, to be myself, to be the person that I am, and to always do what I think is right, you know, because that's what my dad did. And that was the example that he set for us. And I have tried in my way to do that in my own life, and to stick up for other people who are trying to do that in theirs. Just be yourself, be who you are. Don't and and don't put up with people who don't respect you for that. You know, um, this is something I touched on when I spoke at his funeral earlier. I think for whatever reason, my dad carried a lot of insecurity. I think there were many times where my dad felt like he wasn't good enough. He thought of himself as something of a black sheep in the family, at least. And I don't think he was ever really that. I don't think that was ever an accurate statement. I don't think he was viewed as a black sheep. Certainly not within the family. Um, I mean, he had his younger days when he was he was a bit wild and out of control and reckless, and he got in trouble and he got in fights and he wrecked a lot of trucks. And, you know, he had that phase of his life. And I guess maybe there were people who viewed him, who thought poorly of him for that. But I think he always carried a lot of insecurity about, thinking or being afraid that he wasn't good enough. And I think because of that, he always instilled in me and my brother the idea that you are good enough. Like, you should never be embarrassed to be standing in any room you happen to be standing in. Like, you deserve to be there. Who you are is good enough. And nobody is better than you. You're not better than anybody else, but nobody's better than you. And don't be afraid to be who you are and to ask people to respect you for who you are. I think that's the most important lesson that he taught me. And again, he taught me that mostly by his example, but he also would occasionally say that, yeah, I think that's it. That's got to be it. Don Quixote, I was saddened to hear of your father's passing. I remember the day my father passed. I carpooled back then. I went to pick him up and almost went into work that morning because I didn't want to face what needed to be done. He talked me into going back home after I dropped him off and informing my boss on what had happened. Although there was only one day left in the week when my bereavement leave was up, I went in that Friday, and I think it helped keep my mind off it and be around my coworkers. Yeah, I can relate to that. I mean, I know, my work, such as it is, my YouTube work, even though I haven't really done very much this week, and I have deliberately kind of pushed back from it so I had time to handle things. It has been a great comfort to me. And during Dad's, as it turned out, very brief illness, like before he actually died, when he was in the hospital and all of this was happening, I was still working. I was working as much as I could. I was also making time to go and see him in the hospital and, and do all of that because that was very important to me. But I was also writing scripts and shooting videos and editing videos. And I wanted to do that. Like, it wasn't a burden to me. I wanted to do that. It gave me something to focus on. It gave me something to direct my energies toward. It made me feel like I was still accomplishing something other than sitting around and worrying, or sitting around and preemptively grieving, because we all knew what was coming. We were, I think, all pretty shocked by how quickly his death came. But we all knew as soon as he said pancreatic cancer, we knew that sooner or later this was where we were going to be, that it was not a good prognosis. And having work to do really helped. It really helped. Part of it was something else to think about, something to distract me, a creative outlet. but also it was structure, and it was doing something, it was making something, it was using my time in what I believe to be a worthwhile effort. Like that just it helped. It helped. So, and here's another one from Don Quixote who needs to vent about YouTube. This kind of goes back to your algorithm video. If YouTube Premium eliminates all commercials, I may have to go that route. I get so many, even for channels that I'm a paid subscriber. Every time I watch, I have to hear about someone having erection problems and the miracle pill they're taking. Go tell your doctor and leave me out of it. Worse than that, I've recently been seeing ones that don't have a skip button. I don't have ED, but if they flood the site, maybe they'll find someone who does. Yeah, I mean, I guess there's only so much they can target those ads, because you're right. Like, I mean, maybe you don't have ED, but maybe you fit with some of the categories. You carry some of the demographics of someone who typically would. Like, I don't know. Or maybe the videos you watch are typically watched by people who have ED. But yeah, it is a little annoying. Like I've said in those videos I made about the algorithm. I mean, we're told over and over again, oh, they're collecting our data and they're using it to target advertising towards us. And and it's like, if they're going to do that, can they at least do a better job of it? Like, can they at least show me ads for stuff I might be interested in and stop showing me ads for stuff that I just bought? Could we figure that out? But yeah. As far as I know, YouTube Premium eliminates all commercials. I've subscribed to it for several years, and I don't get ads on YouTube videos. So it might be worth it for you to do that. It's not for me to say. The Grumpy Monkey. How now, Steve? There's a scene in the first Raimi Spider-Man movie when the Green Goblin has JJJ by the throat, wanting to know who's taking Webhead's pictures. Jonah covers for Peter, claiming ignorance. I always thought this was a nice character flourish, as every time we see Jameson before and after would suggest that he'd sell Peter out at the drop of a hat. I'm not nitpicking, God no. On the contrary, it's a great moment for the character. Thoughts? And will you please do your goblin impression? It might be the wrong week for the goblin impression. I don't know if I can handle it with my voice in its current state. But remind me and I'll catch you next time. But no, I really like that moment. And I agree. It does, it shows you something unexpected about Jonah. And it tells you something about him. Like, maybe he's not a complete piece of shit. He is very gruff with Peter. He is very sort of harsh with Peter. Very curt with him in their meetings. But, it suggests, without going too hard and without being like saccharine about it, that maybe Jonah kind of likes Peter. Like, he's got a soft spot for him, even though he mostly just sees him as cheap labor to be exploited. He still has a little bit of a soft spot for him. And I like that. And I think it's a really well done moment. Because again, it's not something that they beat you over the head with, but I agree. I think that's a really nice moment. JDC. Hi, Steve. Very sorry to hear about your dad. I hope you're doing okay. Here's a problem that may amuse you. I bought a 3D printer. I thought it might be fun to print a bunch of sci-fi ship models to scale, but there is no scale because they were made to tell a story on screen in the moment. Who knew, right? Anyway, I love the shuttle exteriors on Strange New World Season 4. It's like if the 60s designers had a budget. Do you and perhaps Mr. Harding have any plans for Season 4? Thanks and take care of yourself. I don't think Mr. Harding does. If Jason came to me and said, hey, let's review Season 4 of Strange New Worlds one episode at a time like we did a few years ago, I would be totally up for that, because I love doing anything with Jason. And if he said, hey, let's review Star Trek, I would jump on that right away. But I don't think he wants to do that. I think Jason is a little more negative on Strange New Worlds than I am. I think, I mean, I didn't like season 3 either, for the most part. But I think he really didn't like season 3, and I think it did kind of sour him on the show. So I don't know if he's even watching season 4. I think he might be waiting until it's all released before he watches it. So no plans to review it with Jason. And my plan right now is to do what I have been doing for the past few years and just review the entire season in one video once all of the episodes are out. I'll just do a season review video like I did for Strange New Worlds, like I did for Starfleet Academy. Just one video for the whole season. So, yeah. Kara the Tolkien Nerd. Hi, Steve. Hope you're doing okay. Did you know that Santa Prisca turns up in DC canon at least 71 times? What country do you think Santa Prisca stands for? Or is it any South American hellhole? Thoughts, Kara? I mean, yeah, it could be any country that the writer of a given story wants it to be. I always kind of thought it was meant to emulate Cuba a little bit. Because isn't it supposed to be kind of a Caribbean type location? Like, it's not exactly, I guess it could be South America, but I always thought it was kind of it evoked images of Cuba and of specifically an American viewpoint of Cuba and what Cuba must be like, from an American perspective. But yeah, but you're right. It's any South American hellhole that the writers need it to be. Demonox, would you ever watch a Star Trek anthology series called Star Trek Holodecks? Each episode would feature a different holodeck program and genre, rotating cast, while an ongoing real-world story unfolds in the background through snippets of crew conversations, occasional malfunctions, and other clues. Part of the fun would be piecing together what's happening outside the holodeck. That's my dream series. It's actually a very clever premise. I would give it a chance. I would give it a chance and just see how it works, because I do really like that idea. The main focus of the episode is the holodeck stuff, but also there are little snippets of information revealing something happening on the outside. I really like that. I really like that. I like that kind of sort of controlled, indirect storytelling. I think that's a really smart way to tell a story, where you don't just feed people everything and say, here's what's going on. You let them figure it out while something else is going on, sort of parallel to it. I really like that kind of storytelling. And yeah, so I would totally watch this show. Yeah, I would totally watch this show. I think it's a really clever idea. Kara the Talking, we're kind of bouncing back and forth between Demonox and Kara. Have you noticed? Anyway, Kara the Talking Nerd, dear Steve, this is not a question, so you can choose whether to read it or not. Well, obviously, I'm reading it. You have my deepest condolences on the death of your father. I thought he looked like a young Leonard Nimoy, and from your photo, it looked like he raised 2 good sons. Best wishes, Kara. Thank you very much. I see the Nimoy thing in the photo of him as a younger man that I showed in my video. I see kind of I get kind of a Nimoy-ish thing. I see where you're getting that from. I never really thought that on my own, but now that you've mentioned it, yeah, I kind of see it. And I mean, I guess he raised 2 good sons. I guess we're all right. Me and my brother. We're okay. We're acceptable, I think. And here's another one from Demonox. Hey, Steve. Hard-hitting question time. No more softball crap from your fans. Fess up. Peanut butter and jelly jam or peanut butter and fluff? Chunky or smooth peanut butter? If not fluff, jelly or jam, what flavor? Yeah, let's see you try to answer these. My reporting is as hard-hitting as Beto Ortega's. Yeah, that great journalist, Beto Ortega. Well, of the options given, I would say jelly or jam. I've never been a huge fan of marshmallow. either in fluff form or in, solid marshmallow form. I've just never been a huge marshmallow fan. So between the two choices, I would choose jelly or jam. Although my real choice with a peanut butter is honey. When I make a peanut butter sandwich, I don't add jelly or jam to it. I add honey. That's my favorite. Um, but if I did choose jelly or jam, what flavor? I mean, maybe blueberry. Can't go wrong with blueberry. Or strawberry's good too. Strawberry's not as good with peanut butter, I think. I think blueberry goes better with peanut butter. Um, and chunky or smooth. I really like both, but lately I've been going with smooth. But I have a great affection for chunky peanut butter as well. Glenn H, greetings, Steve. I have missed submitting for the last couple of askaways, and so I have a backlog of silly Star Trek and movie questions to ask. And then you had to go and get real. I'm sorry. So I'm using my question to send condolences to you and your family on your recent loss. I was glad to hear that recently you had been able to reconnect with your dad. I lost my father a couple of years back, and I didn't get that chance. All the best to you and your family as you work through this challenging part of life. Thank you very much, my friend. Me and my dad, I mean, we did get a lot closer than we had been, but it was, I mean, I guess it was recent as far as like my entire lifespan. But it was, within the past several years. It wasn't something that just happened or just happened a couple of years ago. Um, we got a lot closer after his marriage to my mother ended. That was when we really started to sort of, to open up to each other more emotionally. Um, my dad went to therapy for a while, which he always spoke very highly of and talked about how that really, really helped him out. And I'm so glad he did that. He was not the kind of guy I would have expected would have gone to therapy, but he did, and he got a lot out of it. And I'm very glad. But yeah, so it's been, I would say over 10 years, you know. I think they got divorced maybe 12 or 13 years ago actually. So it's been a roughly that time. So it's been we've had a nice decent chunk of time where we were closer as father and son than we had been. And I'm very grateful that we got that too, you know, because it gives me more assurance that, I mean, you're always going to feel like there were things left unsaid between you and a loved one. You're always going to feel like, oh man, I wish I had told him that, or I wish we had had one more chance to talk. Like you're always going to have that no matter what. But the fact that we were able to become a lot closer and a lot more open with each other and express our love for each other in ways that we had not so easily earlier in life. I'm glad we had that, because that's more reassuring to me that he did know how I felt, that he did really know that I loved him, and that I thought that he had been a good dad, that I didn't hold any, resentment toward him or anything like that, that we were good, that we were good. It makes it much easier for me to feel that and believe that. So I'm very grateful for that. And thank you for your kind thoughts. Greg Gildersleeve, more of a comment than a question. I started watching a YouTube review of the Griffin incident, which is the most recently released episode of Strange New Worlds, but gave up when the reviewer started by blasting the show for Kirk saying he was a Boy Scout, which contradicted Carol Marcus's statement in The Wrath of Khan that Kirk was never a Boy Scout. I think I'm coming around to your way of thinking. Niggling is not criticism. I know you'll probably review the entire season 4 later, but assuming no one else has asked, any initial thoughts? Well, first of all, I've heard other people complaining about that. It's a joke. Like, it's a joke that is actually dependent on you having knowledge of Carol saying that. Right? Because, like, when Carol says, first of all, it's time for let's have a little mini media literacy lesson, shall we? And I know most of you watching don't need this, but for the sake of anybody who does, when Carol says in Star Trek II to David, Oh, son, Jim Kirk was many things, but he was never a Boy Scout. She is using Boy Scout in a figurative sense. She is using Boy Scout in the sense of a good boy, a goody two shoes, someone who follows the rules, always true, right? Like she's using it in a metaphorical sense. She is not saying it to establish the biographical fact that James T. Kirk was never a member of the Boy Scouts. That's not what she's doing. So in Strange New Worlds, when Kirk references being a Boy Scout, like an actual Boy Scout as a boy, he was a member of the Boy Scouts, him saying that in the episode is a joke for the benefit of those of us who have seen Star Trek II and remember Carol Marcus saying that line. And it's kind of funny that Carol says, Jim Kirk was never a Boy Scout. And then here we have younger Kirk saying, when I was a Boy Scout, it's a joke. It's an intentional, it's not a real contradiction, but it is an intentional sort of, rhetorical contradiction as a gag, as a laugh. And I think it was actually kind of clever and kind of cute and kind of funny. And the reason people had a problem with it is because they have piss poor media literacy and because they are incapable of doing anything but taking everything literally. Everything is one dimensional to them. The idea of a kind of meta joke never even occurs to them. All they see is, that's wrong. That's wrong. Because they don't see it as art. They don't see it as a story. They see it as a collection of facts, which to me is the most boring and tedious way you could ever possibly think of a story. Like, it's a collection of facts about an imaginary universe that is so fucking boring. But anyway, that's where that comes from, I think. I really like season 4 so far. I actually have gotten to see up through episode 6 because I got access to screeners thanks to my friends at the Trexploration podcast. I was a guest on their their show to review episode 1 of season 4, which we all really liked, and I believe they are also inviting me back to review episode 5. And they got screeners, Paramount released screeners for the first 6 episodes. And the Trexploration guys were kind enough to share their screeners with me so I could get up to speed, for any episodes that they wanted me to have on their show to review. So I've seen up through episode 6. And in my opinion, they're all very good. Like it's definitely a massive improvement over season 3, which is a big relief to me. Because I was kind of worried at the end of season 3. I was kind of worried, like, oh shit, I think they may have lost it. But season 4, from what I have seen so far, has been very good. And there is one upcoming episode that I have seen, and I won't even spoil which episode it is. I'll just tell you that one of the upcoming episodes that I have seen that has not been released yet is absolutely fantastic. Is one of the best episodes of the entire series. It's really, really, really good. And is yet another example of a Strange New Worlds version of a type of episode that lots of other Star Trek shows have done. I'll just leave it at that. But it's really good. So no, so far so good for season 4. I have liked it very, very much. Simon Moody, hey Steve, doesn't feel like a week for a question. One thing you mentioned is how much you and your brother have been there for each other. As someone with no siblings, looking ahead to when I will be in your shoes, I genuinely feel a little envy. We should all be so fortunate to have someone like that in such moments. All the best in keeping on keeping on. Thank you, my friend. Well, I hope you have somebody when that time comes. If not a blood relative, then someone, a good friend, someone to lean on. Because, yeah, having my brother with me through this process and having us both carry the weight, not just emotionally, but in terms of, having to make arrangements, having to call people. I was the point of contact with hospice. I was the point of contact with the pastor that we asked to perform the service at my dad's graveside service today. I was the point of, we both went to the funeral home to make the arrangements, but I was the point of contact if they needed to get in touch for something after that, you know? And while I was doing all of that, my brother was at the house and he was sorting through dad's things, and he was, you know, finding pictures for the slideshow for the funeral, and he was getting documents together and sort of starting to get our ducks in a row when we do start dealing with having to settle the estate and having to handle some of the legal things. He was making sure that, you know, we were going to be able to get the ball rolling fast on that. Like, he was doing all of that. And that's just such there's such a, you know, a lifting of a burden when you know that someone else who is on your side and who sees things the same way you do and is facing the same direction as you are and has the same goals, that someone else is in it with you. You know, it's just having my brother by my side for this has been a remarkable, you know, point of good fortune. Yeah. Isaiah, nothing to ask in your time of mourning, just sending my thoughts and condolences. Here's my 1 to 1400 AMT Excelsior kit, USS Tallahassee, if I can share them. Well, Isaiah, thank you very much for your condolences, my friend. Unfortunately, the link you sent me linked to a Facebook group that I am not a member of and that I don't really want to join. Sorry. So unfortunately, I don't have your pictures to share with everybody. But you know, I'm doing this weekend. We're doing the patron members hangout to make up for the one that I missed last week. So if you're going to be with us for that and you wanted to share them during that, that would be great. I would love that. But I can't share them right now because you sent me the link to a Facebook group, and I just don't like joining Facebook groups. Especially when you have to, like, you know, you can't just join it. Like, it has to be reviewed by the moderators. And yeah, it's like, I mean, I understand why they do that. I'm not doing that. I'd rather just not join the group. There's a contrarianism about me, I think, in that respect. It's like, I understand why you do it. I understand wanting to screen members and stuff. That makes perfect sense. But I'm just not going to do that. It's not that important to me. I don't care. So yeah, but yes, the next time you're with us in a hangout, if you want to share the pics with everybody, that will be wonderful. Air One Fire, the guardian of whatever. Hi, Steve. It's 5 months since I started changing my life, first through diet, then other habits. More importantly, I've been building resources that make them possible to keep. Tricks to get out of bed, simple meal planning, etc. Accepting that something is better than nothing. A lax attitude. Being older helps too. I still doubt I'll find a job, but I'm literally happier than ever and I'm just starting. I think I love myself. No question today, just wanted to check in. All the love for you, Steve. Thank you so much. And I'm really happy for you. You know, because if you love yourself, that's the first step. That's the most important thing. Like all the other changes you're making, that has to start from a place of you're worth it to do this. You know, you as a person, if you want to improve your life, if you want to improve your health, you're doing it because because you want to, because you're worth it. You know, because you value yourself and you value your health and you value your time on this earth, you know. So if you're happier than ever and you love yourself and you're happy with the changes you've been making and you're committed to it, and you know, you're going to continue down this road, I think that's fucking amazing, man. I really think that's amazing. And thank you for sharing that with me. And good luck. Keep at it. Keep going. I think that's fantastic. Russell, hey Steve, I wanted to again wish my deepest condolences to you and your family during this time. There's really no words other than I hope you are taking care of yourself, and likewise with your family during this hard time. I am just keeping a good thought for you. No question on this. Just take care and take it easy. And again, I'm so sorry. Thank you, Russell. Thank you very much. And again, I mean, I'm looking after myself and my brother's looking after himself. And, you know, as much as is possible, given what has happened, I think we're doing okay. I think we're doing okay. And thank you for your thoughts. And now here's Russell's Patreon question, which is a question. Star Trek has capitalism and military existing. There is police. There is penal colonies, psych wards in DS9. Sisko explains it's easy to be a saint in paradise. Quark states at one point about humans that humanity's civilized nature is superficial, explaining that when stripped of luxuries and placed in extreme danger, those same friendly, intelligent, wonderful people will become as nasty and as violent as the most savage Klingons. How different is that from real life? And this from a writer's point of view? It's not any different from real life. I think that's the point. I think that's the point that's being made when the characters say that. It's no different than real life. And there are a lot of other stories that make that same point, that when quote unquote civilized people are forced into a position where the comforts and the structures of civilization that they have come to depend on are suddenly taken away, then those formerly civilized people can become incredibly violent and incredibly unpredictable and brutal. It's something we see. I was reminded of that in the movie The Mist. Jason and I just reviewed The Mist relatively recently for late seating, and that's a big theme of that movie. And in fact, characters flat out say that. There's one point where a character basically says that exact thing. Take away the comforts of, take away the electricity, take away the heat, take away all of the, the creature comforts of society, and watch what happens. Push people to the edge, make people afraid, take away their comfort, and watch what happens. And it's a major theme throughout cinema and literature and whatever you like. So yeah, it's no different. It's no different from real life at all. Damian Williams, my condolences on the loss of your father. As you may remember, I lost my father just last year, and you guys helped me out financially. I just wanted to say that I understand what you're going through and to thank you for everything you do. No question this week. I'll get back to random joke questions next time. Well, I'll look forward to that. And thank you, my friend. Thank you very much. And you know what it feels like to lose a dad. And now we have that in common. So, but yeah, thank you so much for your condolences and your kind thoughts. I really appreciate it. And this is the last question, and it's from my very good friend Siamak, who says, Siamak, who is tired, so tired of explaining the difference between Iran and the regime in control. I bet you're tired of that. Hi, Steve. My sincerest condolences on your loss. I'm so sorry. May his memory bring you joy. I also wanted to just thank you. In one of your posts, you mentioned Iran, the people suffering, and didn't equivocate like so many on our side of the aisle. It means more than I can explain. Well, I mean, I'm glad that you feel that way. I've been following your social media posts about it and seeing your frustration with how incredibly reluctant, I guess, a lot of people on the left have been to champion the cause of the Iranian people. And I completely understand why you feel that way. And yeah, I don't know what else to tell you. I mean, it's when an authoritarian government murders thousands of its own people because they protested that government. I understand it's a complicated situation because of who's in charge of our government and because, it's only natural to oppose your country invading another country or bombing another country. Like, I understand the opposition to the war in that sense, but something needs, we need to acknowledge the suffering of the people of Iran and the fact that they are living under a brutal authoritarian regime, and that they deserve so much better, and that they are suffering under that regime, and that just this year, thousands of them were murdered like were shot down in the streets by that regime. And that's not something that deserves to be just kind of waved off, you know, like that's something that deserves to be acknowledged and taken seriously and factored in, even though again, it's very complicated. And I know it's complicated for people, for Iranian people as well. You know, it's probably even more complicated than it would be for someone like me who is kind of a third party to that whole deal. But yeah, I mean, when a government murders its own people, that's a bad thing. And when people are living under an authoritarian regime, that's a bad thing. And those people have a right, you know, to want to be free and to oppose that government. That shouldn't be that hard for people to understand, you know. So anyway, I'm glad that, you know, I could say something that was a little better than what you've been hearing from a lot of people. Let's put it that way. Okay. That is it for the patron and member questions. I just bet I'm going to have to restart the live chat bot. Oh, look at that. I am going to have to restart the live chat viewer. But while I'm doing that, let me remind you all that as soon as I get this done, I'm going to show you a brand new Stuffy and Friends short. And fortunately, I shoot these usually 2 at a time. So the one I'm going to show you, I had already shot 2 weeks ago. Because otherwise, if I had to shoot a new one this week, either there wouldn't be a new one this week, or there would be one, it would be a very special episode where Steve and Stuffy and the rest of the characters all simultaneously have laryngitis. It would have been funny, I guess, or strange. Anyway, that was not the case, happily. And I have a brand new Stuffy short that is a proper one that I did not have to write around my current vocal impairment. And I would like to show it to you right now. As always, this will go up on its own as a standalone YouTube short on this channel tomorrow, but you get to see it right now. So please do enjoy this brand new Stuffy and Friends short.
If you were a tree, what tree would you be?
I would be the tree that fell in the forest which no one was present to hear.
Would you make a sound?
You will never know.
How about you, Jack?
What's the tree they make wood liquor out of?
I'm not sure.
That one, I reckon.
I'd be a dogwood.
Hey, did one of you drink my last Coke Zero?
Aye, that was me.
Why?
I couldn't very well have a Bushmills and Coke without the Coke, could I?
You motherfucker.
Oi! Choose carefully what you say next, because they might be your last words in this life and your first words in the next.
It's not worth fighting over. It's a Coke. We can get more.
Forget the Coke. What did you just say?
I said if you keep barking at me like that, I'm gonna fucking kill you.
No, specifically. The last words in this life thing.
Aye. Your last words in this life are your first words in the next. What about it?
How's that even supposed to work?
How the hell do I know? I didn't come up with it, did I?
Who did come up with it?
I don't know. The Pope?
Which one?
Sylvester the Fourth. What's the bloody difference?
He was an anti-pope. Is it that your last words in this life are heard in the afterlife at the same time? Like you're dead and alive simultaneously?
How many times do I need to say, what's the difference?
That's only the second time you've said it.
Or do you say your last words in this life again when you wake up in the afterlife? Neither of those options make sense.
If I wanted a religion that made sense, I wouldn't be a Catholic, would I? I'd be a... Oi, what's the religion that makes sense?
Science.
I'd be a bloody Scientologist.
No.
Not the same thing.
Good old Stuffy, eh? All right. Zulu Romeo says doesn't Hans have laryngitis anyway? I guess that depends on how you interpret his voice. Maybe, I think maybe Hans's voice would be the easiest to do with laryngitis. Yeah, it is me, Hans Krieger. Yeah, I can kind of see that. Anyway, I want to go through and acknowledge some super chats before I get to some questions. I already acknowledged yours from earlier, Cara. Thank you very much. Debbie Bannister also sent one in. Thank you as always, Debbie. Carver94 said, what do you think was the most overused improvised MacGyver tools? I'd vote for the car winch. Thank you, and you've been in my thoughts all week. Well, I appreciate that, my friend. Thank you very much. Yeah, he did use the car winch a few times. There was also a period, I think usually it was mostly in the early seasons, maybe the first couple of seasons, where he was always making bombs. Like he was always making bombs out of stuff. He's like, you put this together with that and you wrap it in that, pretty good bomb. Like, oh, okay. Like he was always making bombs. So maybe just generically bombs. He made a lot of bombs. John Burns with a couple of super chats. With AI's track record, Kirk's movie may be factual. Okay. But like, I mean, the Kirk movie would be the non-AI one though. And another one from John who says, Kirk wasn't a Herbert. That was funny though. Okay. I'm not quite sure where you're coming from there, John, but I appreciate it. Don Quixote with a member message says, if we suddenly get a Mitch took a turn for the worst announcement Tuesday, will anyone be surprised? I wouldn't. I wouldn't be super surprised. Simon Moody, Schrodinger's final words. You said them while alive and dead. Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Caitlin says it makes a lot of sense. While your spirit is leaving your body, you're in both places at once, and so you say them in both places at the same time. Yeah. I guess that makes sense. I guess that's how we're supposed to take it. It's like because I've heard the phrase a couple of different ways. I've heard what Jack says in that short, your last words on earth are your first words in your last words in this world are your first words in the next. And I've also heard it said your last breath, like your last breath in this world is your first breath in the next. So, and I guess it kind of goes along the same way, like as you're sort of shifting from the physical world to the spirit world, that kind of thing. Damian Williams with a member message says, I was thinking about the holodeck show pitch. That's kind of how WandaVision worked. I'd be down to watch that. Yeah, I think it's a really clever idea. Let me check out the Q&A tab here. Actually, I just saw another super chat come in. All from Keno. Oh, thank you so much, my friend. That's very generous of you. Thank you so much for you and your brother to have a nice dinner together. I really appreciate that. And I will definitely make that happen. Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. Now and I loved WandaVision too. I thought WandaVision was, I still think it's one of the best of the MCU streaming shows. Definitely one of the most like experimental, Kane 20C says, if it's not too intrusive, would you care to share your father's rank? It's funny. I was asked I never remember. I could never remember his rank. I've seen it written on envelopes. I've seen it in documents. I can never remember it. The pastor who performed his graveside service this morning asked me right when I arrived at the cemetery, actually, and I couldn't remember. I had to direct him to my brother. And my brother knew. It's like he's the opposite. He's got it in here. He remembers the rank. I think it's PT2. I think he was a PT, but I'm not, but don't hold me to that. 285 AD says, is it even possible to do a comic accurate Kingpin in live action when he's simultaneously meant to be gigantic, super strong, and a regular human? Like that kind of only makes sense in cartoons / comics. Yeah. I mean, I feel like D'Onofrio's version in the Daredevil streaming series is probably the closest to comics accurate as far as like his physicality goes. But yeah, even that, it's not exactly the same as in the comic. And you're right, like with a character like that, it's a little silly. Like a character like that doesn't really he's like he's superhumanly strong, but he's also just a normal guy. It's just that he's really big. It's a comic book thing. Cynical optimist, more of a comment than a question, but I bet I know what Spock thought when he saw La'an in that Western outfit. Dang, live long and get some, which coincidentally is the same thing that I thought when I saw La'an in the Western outfit. 285 AD says, did you wear an all black cap at the funeral? I wore no cap at all, my friend. It was just this. I was capless. I was capless. And I wore a black suit with a black tie and a white shirt. So I told a couple of people I feel like I should be presenting an episode of The Twilight Zone. But I look good. I think I look good. Not the sort of clothes that I generally want to wear. But I think I looked okay. Bean 525 says, I was wondering where you source the costumes for your Starfleet Jobs videos. Whenever I try to find something decent, I am inundated with replicas of dubious quality or the same stock photos. I think it's I don't get them all from the same place. Some of them I've gotten from eBay, but I think a lot of them I get from, there's a website called, I think it's Coaster Mart. They have some decent stuff. I think my last couple of costume pieces, like the blue top that I wear in the Starfleet, the casualty notification officer, and it's like the blue Strange New World style top. I think I got that from Coaster Mart, and a couple of other places, a couple of other costumes as well I've gotten from Coaster Mart. 25 AD says, you think humans turn on each other if you take away their comforts? There's a lot of stories about cooperation in natural disasters. Well, yeah, I don't think it happens every single time. I don't think it happens every single time, but I do think it can happen. Yeah. Sinister Intelligence says, I think Geek shared the link with you. Yeah, but I would have to like load the images into my broadcast software, and I kind of just don't want to do that right now. I would have to sort of stop the stream to set it up. So let's just save that for another time. Let's either you can share them this weekend if you can make the hangout, or we can, you can send me a link that I can access like next time and I can show people then. Cynical Optimist says, do you think it's possible to have a democratic foreign policy, i.e. the use of military, trade, and diplomacy with democratic principles and not naked self-interest? I don't know. I mean, I think it's possible to do a better job than we're doing now. I'll put it that way. I think it's possible to do a better job than we're doing now. And same thing as far as what you said in your next question. Do you think we can and should use our armed forces in ethical ways? Again, I don't know if there's ever a perfectly ethical way to use our armed forces, but I think we could be doing a better job of it than we are now. 285 AD says, when was the last time you ate at the Olive Garden? I cannot remember. It's been many, many years. It's been many, many years. Caitlin says, by the way, since you've mentioned liking BoJack and NYPD Blue, I think you really will enjoy Mad Men when you eventually watch it. Kind of maybe a weird set of shows to put together, but I do think it's apt. Yeah, I mean, I think I told you, I watched the first episode of Mad Men and I really liked it. And it's just another one of those shows that I haven't gotten around to finishing. But no, I expect I will like Mad Men as well when I do finally get around to watching it. Yeah. Sorry, Isaiah. Sunday, or I mean, if people want to just click on the link that Geek put in the chat and just look for yourselves, that's fine too. But if you wanted to like show it on a stream, let's just wait until Sunday. Daryl says, have you ever? My condolences too. Thank you very much. Have you and Jason ever considered the films of Michael Moore for late seating? I can't remember if we've ever had a Michael Moore movie as an option for one of my terrible choices or not. I don't see why we would avoid it. I think we definitely could and should do a Michael Moore movie because some of his films have definitely had a cultural impact. Roger and Me, Bowling for Columbine, Fahrenheit 9/11. I think he's made some films that definitely more than meet our criteria. So, yeah, I think we should probably do one at some point. Oh, Kane, thank you. Kane says, all the more respect to your father. Enlisted is a noble vocation, not like those spoiled brats of officers. That's funny. Yeah, and my joke has always been, because my father actually enlisted twice. He enlisted more or less right out of high school in the 70s and did a 4-year tour. Then he got out and he got married. And then I came along. And then not too long after I was born, he re-enlisted for another 2 years. And I've always said, I try not to take that personally. But it does. It's funny to me to imagine, like my dad, being around baby Steve for a few months and going, I think I'm going to go back in the Navy. And it's also funny because, as a lot of you know, as I've talked about before, one of my favorite shows ever is All in the Family. And there's an episode of All in the Family that is kind of a flashback episode that's like the origin story of how Meathead and Gloria came to be living with Archie and Edith. And there's a scene where, Meathead and Gloria tell Edith and Archie that their plan is to get married and to move in with them while Mike goes to school, right? And Edith is just overjoyed. She loves this idea. And she's like, they're going to get married and live with us, And Archie says, and what am I supposed to do? Join the Navy? And that's kind of what my dad did. I came along and he was like, join in the Navy. See ya. So, yeah. But no hard feelings. I don't think that's actually why he did it. I don't think he was actually trying to avoid being a father. But it's funny, the timing of it. 255 AD says, how do you feel about Trek fans referring to novels and comics as the Apocrypha? I think it's kind of pretentious. I think it's a little, I think it's indicative of an overly serious attitude toward the material. The Apocrypha, the Deuterocanon, I think it's a little silly. Oh, and Zulu Romeo, I've heard of this movie. Zulu says the TV film Threads shows us what happens when the comforts of civilization are taken away from everybody, in this case by global thermonuclear war. It's not pretty. I've heard of this film and I've wanted to watch, but I've never actually gotten around to watching it. That's a good reminder that I want to watch that. Yeah. 255 AD says, should all wars require a referendum? Well, I think all wars should require more than simply, executive power. I'll put it that way. Like, theoretically, here in the United States, a war or a military action that lasts longer than 60 days is supposed to require action by Congress to extend it. And there are ways to sort of weasel around that. That Trump is taking advantage of. And also, Trump is also benefiting from the fact that his party, the Republican Party, are in charge of Congress. And so they're certainly not going to come down hard on him for continuing this ongoing war in Iran longer than the 60-day window. But theoretically, You know, if we lived in a world where the president actually obeyed the fucking law and where Congress actually enforced his limitations, the president can only conduct a military action on his own authority for a certain amount of time, and then Congress has to step in and either say yay or nay as to continuing it. That's not the same thing as a public referendum, but it's the same idea that it should not just be up to the chief executive to decide whether or not we go to war. And 255 ED also says, is Michael Moore dishonest? I don't think he's dishonest. I think, you know, he is a polemicist. He has his point of view that he wants to get across. And that's what he does. That's what his documentary films are for. I don't think that's necessarily dishonest. It's certainly not unbiased, but that's not necessarily a bad thing either. Sinister Intelligence says, have you ever seen the 2011 show Pan Am? It's about the flight attendants of the airline company, stars Christina Ricci and Margot Robbie. I remember it, but I never watched it. Oh, Steve Schmeling says, my condolences on your father. Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much. And he also says the apocryphal canon is better in the original Klingon. 285 AD says, did your dad come out of the Navy when your brother was born? Like, was it being a father in general or just you? I think it was just me, because when my brother came along, he stayed. He didn't go back in the Navy for a third time. When my brother came along, he was like, I guess I'll stick around. So yeah, it must have just been me, you know. But thank God it didn't give me a complex that I carry the rest of my life. Let's see what else is going on here in the chat. I think I got through all of the ones that were in the question tab for now. Oh, some more super chats. Excellent. John Burns says Herbert sounded like a Boy Scout, all officious. I gotcha. Okay. Thank you for the super chat once again, my friend. Carlisle the Cinephile says, one thing that also has me rolling my eyes about the doomsday marketing is how much emphasis they're putting on characters wearing comic accurate suits, specifically Cyclops. Comic accurate doesn't equal good. I agree. And yeah, I mean, while it is kind of neat in a superficial way to see James Marsters wearing a Cyclops outfit that looks like the outfit Cyclops wore in the comics in the 90s, that's kind of neat. But that doesn't mean it's going to be a good movie. You know, I mean, Batman has never had a, strictly speaking, comics accurate costume in any of his live action film appearances. You know, his costume in the Nolan trilogy didn't look like he ever dressed in the comics. His costume in the Matt Reeves, the Batman, doesn't look like it looked in the comics. Who gives a fuck? It doesn't matter. The quality of those films has nothing to do with whether or not the outfit is comics accurate. You know, I mean, you could say that Christopher Reeve's Superman costume was fairly comics accurate. I mean, you know, it's just a muscular big dude in spandex. That's it. And I think that was a great costume. But the movie isn't good or bad because of the costume. The costume looks great, and it does look just like the Superman costume in the comics. But it doesn't determine whether the movie is good or not. Here's another one from Mr. Downside and the Last. Thank you very much. The Neuromancer trailer looks good, but I wonder if its world will be old hat to the casual viewer nowadays. Do you think some books have expiration dates when it comes to adaptation? My condolences. Thank you for your condolences, my friend. I mean, I think it would only have an expiration date if the assumption is that the only people who would be interested in the movie are people who have a pre-existing knowledge of an interest in the book. And I don't think that is necessarily the case. And I don't think that that has to be the case. You know, I mean, obviously, part of what makes it attractive for movie studios to adapt a popular book is that you can kind of import that fan base and kind of get a jump start on the movie, because you know that at least the people who are into the book will be interested in the movie, and it can kind of help get the movie going. But that doesn't mean that, you know, the only people that should want to see the movie are people who have read the book. You know, and I think it's kind of a mistake to narrow cast the movie at that particular audience. I think that's one of the reasons to take it from adaptations of a book to adaptations of another thing. I think that's one of the reasons why the Masters of the Universe movie didn't do super well at the box office. And I mean, I'm sure there's other factors that play it well, and I'm certainly not an expert on this, but I think it was probably a mistake for the studio to market the Masters of the Universe movie so heavily toward pre-existing fans of He-Man, most of whom are people that are my age who remember the cartoon from when they were kids. That's probably a decent size audience, but it's not a big enough audience to make a movie that expensive into a hit, you know, theatrically. And the movie itself was so good and was so much fun and was so accessible and was so appealing that if they had marketed it as, you know, to a more general audience, instead of making it seem like, well, if you like He-Man, you'll like this movie, and if you don't like He-Man, no point in going to see it, I think the movie would have done a lot better. You know, so just because there is a pre-existing audience, just because it is an adaptation of something that is popular in its original media, that doesn't mean that, you know, that's going to be the audience for the movie. Like, if the movie's good, and the movie should be made for a broader audience than just the pre-existing audience, you know, and it should be marketed that way. And again, these are, you know, more complicated issues than I would necessarily know how to solve, but I just think that mentality is something that holds a lot of movies back from being more popular than they are. So the idea of, like, would it have an expiration date when it comes to adaptation? I mean, it really shouldn't, you know, unless you assume that only people who like the book are going to like the movie. One more super chat here from John Burns. Enterprise photo. What's happening in this scene? Archer thinks Sam Beckett just leapt into T'Pol. Oh boy. So Archer knows about Sam Beckett, and he believes that Sam Beckett has leapt into T'Pol. So how did Captain Archer find out about Sam Beckett? Let's turn back to the questions tab and see what we've got going on here. Oh, Caitlin, yes. I think I never mentioned this to you. Yes, I greatly enjoyed both the Sabotage supercut and the Peep Show one. I thought, and especially the Peep Show one was very clever. I really liked that one a lot. Yeah, I really liked that one a lot. Zulu Romeo says, I don't know about you, but the implosion of the Infantino regime at FIFA has been fun to watch. Good to see so many football confederations sticking it to them, especially UEFA. Yeah, I've been kind of peripherally aware of it because I don't really follow soccer, but it has sort of broken containment and become a bigger story than just a sports story. So I'm aware generally of what's going on. And it's FIFA does, I mean, again, I don't follow soccer. I don't know a lot about it. But FIFA, especially under the current leadership, seems like kind of a shitty organization. So it's nice. Yeah, it's nice. 255 AD says, didn't you say your dad's rank was senior chief petty officer? Or am I thinking of someone else you talked about? It might have been someone else. And okay, and here's some more from Caitlin. I had no room for it in the character limit, but in my question, I wanted to compare the Faustian bargain of accelerationism with centrist Dems supporting neo-Nazis in primaries, since both rely on the mistaken premises that dealing with it is easier than going up against a less terrible situation, and can both really backfire, that accelerationism actually means supporting right-wing radicalism in the hopes that it makes left-wing radicalism more palatable, rather than just putting the effort into making it more palatable on its own. Yeah. I definitely agree with your assessment that it's kind of just a convenient cognitive shortcut, an easy way out, which people just don't think through the consequences of. Yeah, and I mean the idea, because you saw that, not maybe not a lot of people, but there was a significant number of people who were purportedly on the left, who, when Trump ran the first time, were saying, let's elect Trump because Trump's going to be so bad that he will finally, topple the current order, and then we can really, like, replace it with something better. And I'm like, I mean, even if that actually happens, which I don't think that was ever a realistic thing to happen. But I mean, you really think that's going to be a good thing? They don't think it through. Like, do you really think it's like, well, Trump's going to be such a shitty president that he's going to just burn everything down, and then we can come in and just make something better? Like, it's just that easy, like, oh, okay. Well, we'll just come in and fix everything after Trump destroys the government and destroys the country. I don't think that destroying the country just so you can rebuild it is a desirable thing, A. And B, I don't think rebuilding it in the wake of that destruction is going to be as easy as you think it is. And I don't think it is necessarily going to be easier than trying to fix things while keeping the current structure in place so that a bunch of people don't die who would die otherwise. Cynical Optimist asked, not sure if I've asked you before, but are you a fan of Red Letter Media? How would you rate their work either way? I haven't watched them regularly for a long time. I used to watch them a lot. I mean, I love the Plinkett reviews. I still think those are really funny and really good works of film criticism, in addition to being funny. I like those a lot. I watched Half in the Bag for a while, but I kind of just lost interest in it. So, I mean, I haven't watched them for a while. I don't have a negative opinion on them. I think, they probably have a reputation for being more negative and more kind of reactionary than they actually are, from what I've seen. But no, I can't really give a fully informed opinion on them because I haven't watched them for a while, but I used to watch them and I used to enjoy some of their stuff. Don Quixote says Ryan Gosling has been released as starring in a future Ghost Rider movie. Your thoughts? I think casting Ryan Gosling is always a good idea. I think he's a tremendous actor and a great star. I can see him as Ghost Rider. I think that might go somewhere. And I think it's interesting that, they're definitely going in a different direction than they did with like the Nicolas Cage big screen version from a few years ago, which I did enjoy, but was definitely like more of a ironic enjoyment, kind of the Nicolas Cage of it all. You get to see Nicolas Cage just going for it and overacting and doing his big hammy Nicolas Cage thing, which was a lot of fun. And it feels like maybe with the selection of Ryan Gosling, they'll be going in a slightly different direction. Although he is a fantastic comedic actor, and hopefully the Ghost Rider film that he does will still have a sense of humor. But yeah, I'm curious. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's a good move on Marvel's part to cast Ryan Gosling in anything. Zulu Romeo says, speaking of adaptations of 20th century classic literature, there's that new Animal Farm film out now. Have you seen it, and is it deserving of the scorn it is getting? I have not seen it, so I can't say. 255 AD says, you think you can avoid fascism by just electing centrist Dems until death and demographic change kills the fascist base? I feel like a lot of people have this every election is a stopgap belief. No, I don't think just electing centrist Dems is going to be enough. I think eventually we're going to have to get actual progressive people in power who are interested in legitimate reform and are willing to try and do it. Not every election is a stopgap. Like, eventually, if you want things to get better, especially if you want things to get better from the place where they are now and the place where we have allowed them to be, I think eventually you need to actually start fixing things in a legitimate, significant way, and not just, continually electing custodians to just make sure things don't get any worse. Like, electing someone who will make sure things don't get any worse is better than electing someone who will actively make them worse. But eventually, if you want things to get better, you need to elect someone who is going to actively try to make them better. Caitlin says, oh, heck, this was separate in my notes from checking. You enjoyed the video, so I forgot to fold it into one. Did you notice how James Doohan says sabotage the Canadian way, just like Shatner? Yes. I guess it makes sense, right? Because they are both Canadians. They're both proud sons of Canada. 255 AD says, a new Ghost in the Shell anime running at the moment, and people are like, it's not as good as the 95 movie, and other people are like, but this is manga accurate. Is source material accuracy always better? I mean, to me, it makes no difference. Like, people have their own opinions, people have their own points of attachment, their own sacred cows. To me, it honestly makes no difference how faithful to source material an adaptation is. I don't give a shit as long as it's good. Like, the most, and I know I say this ad nauseum, but it's how I feel. It's my viewpoint about media. As long as the thing that I am watching is entertaining and compelling in its own right. Like, do I care about these characters? Not these characters as extensions of the characters in the book or the characters in the comic or whatever, but these characters in this movie. As long as I care about them and I care about what happens to them and I'm invested in the story and I'm, emotionally involved in it in some way, I don't give a fuck whether it's accurate to the source material or not. I could not care less. James Whale's Frankenstein movies, they diverge drastically from the novel, from Mary Shelley's novel. Drastically. I do not give a shit. I like Frankenstein, the novel. Like, I like Mary Shelley's novel. I think it's a really wonderful piece of literature. I like it. It's way better than Dracula. Like, it's way better than Dracula. And I really like it. But my favorite Frankenstein movies are movies that depart from it significantly. Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein, the Hammer Frankenstein movies like Curse of Frankenstein, and several of the sequels to that, starring Peter Cushing as Baron Frankenstein, that just have nothing to do with the book at all. That at a certain point, they aren't even adapting the book anymore. It's just original stories featuring the character of Frankenstein as he's been portrayed in this series of films. Other than the characters, it owes nothing to the source material at all. And some of them are absolutely brilliant films that I love. And so, no, I don't give a shit. Now, again, other people feel differently, but I don't give a shit how accurate to the source material it is. And it certainly isn't automatically better in my mind if an adaptation is more faithful to the source material. Oh, Caitlin, this is a good one. Caitlin says, you've talked about the shit being very different from the shits. But I've also noticed the same thing with peak lately. Its peak means great. It peaked means it's now shit. Funny, huh? Yeah, I'll give you an even better example. And that is a great example. I'll give you an even better example. Because this is the exact same word. And it just, the usage, the sense in which it's meant depends purely on context, okay? And this might be a little out of date. I may be a little out of date on my slang, but the word ghetto. If someone like sees something they really like, they could say, to express the fact that they think it's really cool, they could say, that is ghetto. And they mean it as a positive. They mean it as like, oh, this is really great. I remember I was I was back when I had a real job, and I was working at the truck stop I used to work at, and my partner for that shift, came back to our workroom, and he had some kind of like a snack, like a candy bar, like a snack cake or something. And he, unwrapped one, and he offered one to me. He said, "You want one?" And I said, "No, that's okay." And he said, "They're fucking ghetto." And he like takes a lusty bite out of it. Like he really liked it. So he meant it as like a good thing. Like it's fucking ghetto. But sometimes you can look at something that's like, that's maybe in a state of disrepair, let's say. Like someone has a car that's kind of broken down or needs a new paint job or is like belching smoke out the back. And you'll say, look at him driving that ghetto ass car. And you mean it as an insult or as an indication that it's bad. The exact same word. And it just depends on the context. And yes, Caitlin, also bad and sick. Yes, exact same thing. Bad can mean bad, literally, or bad can mean awesome. Yeah, and same with sick. Yeah. Sinister Intelligence asks, have you seen Ryan Gosling in First Man? Yes. Yes. And I was pleasantly surprised by how much I loved that movie. Making a movie about Neil Armstrong is a tall order, but I think they made a really, really good movie. And I thought Ryan Gosling was great. I thought the movie was great. I liked it a lot. I tend to be very hard on astronaut movies because I hold my favorite astronaut movie, The Right Stuff, in such high regard. Like I think the Right Stuff is not just my favorite astronaut movie, it's one of my favorite movies, period. I love The Right Stuff. And very, very few astronaut movies other than The Right Stuff, to me, like measure up to that. But I think First Man comes closer than pretty much any other one. I know you and I, Isaiah, have talked about Apollo 13, and I really like Apollo 13. I don't think I like it as much as you do. I like Apollo 13, but like I've always had the feeling that Apollo 13 is Apollo 13 is not as good as it should have been given what it's about. Like the real story of Apollo 13 is such an extraordinary thing. It's almost impossible to believe that this actually happened and it turned out the way it did. Like it's an amazing story. And the movie is just, a pretty good movie. Like there's nothing really wrong with it. I like it, but it just doesn't, it just doesn't hit the way I think a movie about the Apollo 13 incident should. And so I've always compared it very unfavorably to The Right Stuff, which I think is just a masterpiece. But I think First Man is above that. I think First Man is, I don't think First Man is as good as The Right Stuff either, but I do think it's higher on the list than most other astronaut movies. 225 AD says, you think people on the left sometimes fail to get that centrist Democrats actually believe in neoliberalism? I, I don't know many people on the left who don't get that. I know a lot more people on the left who talk about that all the time. Yeah. I mean, I think most people on the left are all too aware of the neoliberal tendencies of many centrist Democrats. Yeah. 255 AD says, I've been watching a CGI dinosaur documentary called Surviving Earth. Some of the online discourse has been about them compromising scientific educational accuracy for storytelling. Thoughts on that? I don't know. I mean, I would have to watch the series to really know for myself. I do think if it has been pitched as like an educational thing, if it has been pitched as like not just telling a story about the dinosaurs, but an accurate or as accurate as we are able to determine representation of the dinosaurs, and I do think it's probably fair to be upset if it's taking like significant liberties. Yeah. Um, I do think in general, it is usually, at least to me, it is usually permissible for a documentary to choose story over facts from time to time. I mean, and Werner Herzog does that with his documentaries all the time. But there's always kind of an understanding that, you know, you're not watching a news report. Yes, it's a documentary. Yes, it's made, it's a telling of a real story with real people, but it's also this director, you know, telling you a story and shaping this story. And the story they are telling is more important to them than the literal facts. And I think that's okay. But if it is something that is being presented to the audience as, you know, this is a reliable source of information, then I think it's incumbent on the filmmakers to try and make it as accurate as possible. Cynical Optimist says, is there a classic movie or TV show that everyone seems to love that you don't? For example, mine is 2001. Technically flawless, but it never feels like more than the sum of its parts to me. I mean, I used to feel that way about It's a Wonderful Life. I don't anymore. I have been won over by It's a Wonderful Life in more recent years. But when I was growing up, I never liked it. But I like it very much now. But I'm not super crazy about The Wizard of Oz. I have more of an appreciation for it now than I did when I was younger because I appreciate the filmmaking aspects of it more. I appreciate the production side of it more. Like there's a lot about it that I admire on a technical level, and just the sort of old Hollywood of it and what an important film it was. But as a movie, as a story, I'm still not really that into it, you know, and I know it's like a greatly beloved classic for a lot of people, and it's just never really done it for me. I don't think it's terrible. I like it more than I used to, but it's still not something that it's not, you know, not my favorite movie. Caitlin says, a while ago, I asked if you enjoyed DVD commentaries, and you mentioned them needing to be pretty special now. Have you ever seen one with 2 or 3 per episode before? I'd only seen that on films myself. Yeah, I think I'm trying to think of where I've seen it, but I'm yeah, like sometimes there'll be like a director's commentary, and then there'll also be like a commentary with like the writer or some of the actors, you know, like they're depending on, you know, the role of the person doing the commentary, they might give you separate commentary tracks. Like I'm hard pressed to think of an example off the top of my head, but I that does sound familiar. 285 AD says, it implied 2 giant amphibian species died out several million years before they actually did, because it made a particular mass extinction seem more dramatic. That's what I meant. I don't know. I mean, me personally, I would not get that upset about that. Like, I guess technically that is a misrepresentation, but I wouldn't be that upset about that. But I guess if I were, you know, a paleontologist, I might be more upset about it. Wonderland Pirate says, what work of media are you most looking forward to when it enters the public domain? Oh, good question. I'm trying to think of some of the major ones that are going to be entering the public domain soon. Yeah, that's what I thought. Next year, so 2027, One of my favorite films ever, Charlie Chaplin's City Lights, enters the public domain. It was released in 1931, and next year, films released in 1931 are all going to be public domain. So I'm really looking forward to that one, because that is, I mean, I just said, I was talking about, The Right Stuff being one of my favorite films. City Lights is like definitely top 5, maybe top 3. Like, I absolutely adore City Lights. And the fact that it is going to be entering the public domain is pretty exciting to me. Yeah, 255. Yeah, I get your point. And I do think that happens as well. People on the left act like old Dems only push neoliberalism because they're bought by donors or too dumb to understand, not that they genuinely believe in it. And I do think that a lot of them do genuinely believe in it. And I think there's a lot on there. There's a lot. I mean, to me personally, I've never been that, interested in, who everybody's donors are. I mean, I think politics would be a lot better if we got private money out of it, if we kind of enforced like public funding of elections and just didn't let private donors get involved at all and made it more of a level playing field. I do think that would be a very good thing. But I've never been super like, oh, don't you know who, look at all the donors for that candidate. Like, I mean, there are times when that is concerning depending on who the donor is. But that by itself has never been enough to make me go like, oh yeah, I'll never vote for them. Like, because they're kind of, it's sort of, fruit from the poison tree, I guess, or sort of the political equivalent of there's no ethical consumption under capitalism. Like, everybody involved in the system as it currently exists is a little tainted. And we just kind of have to do the best we can with who we've got. So, I've not been quite as sensitive, let's say, about who everybody's donors are. But I mean, I do think it would be a much improved circumstance if we could eliminate the influence of those donors. Let me see. Oh, another super chat just came in from Mr. Downside in the last. Thank you very much. I meant that Neuromancer is kind of dated. Others inspired by it have done more with the genre since. Today's viewer is smarter than people think. Hollywood should have done that movie in the 90s, in my opinion. Okay, I mean, maybe the movie will update it somehow. I don't know. Like, again, it's hard to judge the movie, especially if the movie hasn't been made yet, based on the source material, because you never know what the filmmakers are going to do, with the source material. All right. It's past 8:00 and I'm, my voice is still pretty much gone. So I'm going to wrap up the show. If anybody has any final questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat, and I will come back for a last look after I do my typical wrap up. But first of all, let's do this right at the beginning. Don't forget charitylinks.page, which is maintained by our friend Some Random Geek and has crowdfunding links and various other resources to help out friends of ours who need a helping hand. As I said earlier in response to Geek's question, it is absolutely a shame and an embarrassment in a country as wealthy as ours, as the United States, that anybody has to publicly solicit help to pay their bills, to provide basic necessities for themselves and their family. But that is the situation that we're in. So if any of you have a few bucks left over at the end of the month and you would like to put it toward a good cause and help out some people who need help, with just, buying groceries or keeping the lights on, that kind of thing, please take a look at the links provided in charitylinks.page and consider helping out some friends of ours who need a helping hand. That would be greatly appreciated. Geek is also sharing some of the direct links in the chat right now. Also, as far as I am concerned, if you enjoy what I do here on this YouTube channel and you would like to help me to continue doing it, you can do so by becoming a patron of this channel at patreon.com/Steve Shives, or by clicking the join button to become a channel member. Either way, whether you become a patron or a member, if you do so at any level, one of the benefits that you can take advantage of is you can submit questions ahead of time for these Ask Away live streams, and I will answer those questions during the first part of the show, as I did tonight. Just a little, thing I do to show you guys that I appreciate your support, and I could not continue to do this without you. If I didn't have my patrons and my channel members, this would be a lot more difficult. Let's put it that way. So I am eternally grateful to you all for your support. And I'm grateful to all of you, whether you are a patron or a member or not, as well, for, just watching and liking and subscribing and sharing my videos and all of that stuff. And I am especially grateful for your support and your sympathy and your kind words this past week after the death of my dad. It really does mean a lot to me that you guys, have my back. And your expressions of kindness have meant a great deal to me. So thank you all for that. Whether you are a patron or a member or not, that is something I will always be very grateful for. Also, don't forget to do a Casey Kasem transition here. If you enjoy my YouTube stuff, don't forget to check out the podcasts that I am a co-host on alongside my very best friend, Jason Harding. We are the hosts of the Late Seating Podcast, which is a movie review podcast where we take a look at classic films and see if they deserve whatever reputation they have, whether it's good or bad. Our most recent episode that we recorded this past weekend, as I was losing my voice, is our review of Children of Men. So if you want to hear what we think about Children of Men, listen to that episode. And also there is the Ensign's Log, which is the Star Trek comedy podcast that I'm on alongside Jason and our friend Amanda Billings, who so very, very kindly, when I told her about my dad, she took it upon herself to mail me, packed in ice, some delicious frozen authentic Chicago deep dish pizza. And I've had the first one. She sent me two. One of them is still in the freezer, but I had the first one on Wednesday. Just delicious. Just delicious. So endless gratitude for that. And check out the Ensign's Log. We just recorded our season finale. So the Ensign's Log is going to be going on hiatus for a few weeks between seasons, but we will be back for a new season in a few weeks. And we will be doing our customary live stream on this channel before the new season starts. And I will keep you all informed as to when that's going to happen and all of that. But yeah, check out the Ensign's Log. If you like Star Trek, if you like funny Star Trek, satirical Star Trek, I think the Ensign's Log is up your alley. So give it a listen if you have not done so before. All right, let me take one last look at the chat, see if there's anything I missed, and then we will call it a night. Caitlin says, I find comparing the writer's interpretations against the director's especially interesting. Like, one often views a character as being reticent while the other views them as relishing something. And often the actors have a very different read on their motivations than the writers or directors do as well. Yeah, it reminds me of something. I don't know if you've ever seen that Michael Caine acting class that is on YouTube that he did back in the late 80s. But it's a pretty famous video where it's been used like as the basis of a lot of spoofs of Michael Caine. But it's actually very good. It has some really, really good advice and some really interesting philosophy, at least Michael Caine's philosophy on film acting. But one of the things he says is that he never watches dailies. And dailies are less of a thing now because so many things are shot on digital. But back in the old days when everything was shot on film, dailies were the rushed film that had been shot either that day or the day before, that was developed just in a very quick, and dirty process so that people could watch what they had shot. And Michael Caine said, I never go to dailies, and I never talk to other people about dailies either. I don't even worry about them, because he said what happens is if you ask someone from the costume department what they thought of the dailies, they're going to say, oh, did you see the costumes? The costumes looked great. And if you ask, the hairdresser about the dailies, they're going to say, oh, did you see the wig? The wig looked perfect. Did you, if you ask the sound guy about the dailies, oh, did you hear this? Like everybody's focused on their particular area of concern. And that's what they're worried about. And it's kind of what you're talking about there, where in a commentary track, the writer is going to be talking from a writer's perspective, and they're going to be primarily interested in stuff related to that. And the director is going to be looking at it as a director. And the actors are going to be thinking about performance. Like everybody's interested in their own area of expertise. And because of that, they often will have different interpretations or different perspectives to bring on the same piece of work. And I agree. It is very interesting. 225 AD said, why did Charlie Chaplin call a movie Modern Times in 1936? Didn't anyone point out to him that it was 90 years ago? Hindsight is 2020. That's all I can tell you. Hindsight is 2020. Let me take a final look at super chats. There's one from Wolfram Hart. Thank you, my friend. Steve, letting you know, since you let me know to watch Orson Welles' Citizen Kane, his last film as Unicron will hit Fandom Theater September 17th with the Hasbro Apology Tour with new scenes. Yes, I know. I saw a trailer for this, I think, when I went to see Supergirl. When I went to see Supergirl, they had a trailer for the Fathom re-release of the Transformers movie. So yeah, I'm thinking about going to see it. I may not. But I'm thinking about going to see it if I can see it when it's showing, yeah. But yeah, I'm aware of yes, Eddie, you're right. It is Orson Welles' last film. All right, I believe thank you, Suji. Slippery elm bark. Thank you. I have some Hall's lozenges that seem to help. I'm going to go avail myself of one of those here in a minute. But see you, Mac. Thank you, my friend. That's over, my friend. Falling off a cliff. Go rest your money. I will. Thank you, my friend. Thanks to everybody for being here. I am going to go rest my voice and maybe eat some pizza, H-Lin. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I will see you next time. I will see you on Sunday, actually, because we're going to do the makeup for the patron and members hangout that I canceled last week. So yeah, I'll see some of you then on Sunday, and I'll see you next time, for various videos, and I'll see you in 2 weeks for another one of these. So thank you all so very, very much for everything you do for me, and have a good night, and have a good weekend, and take care of yourselves. Bye, everybody.